Hello fellow parents. So I am dragging you along with me today. I'm on my way to meet a friend of mine from Canberra, Australia, and I wanted to share her story. She's a single mom, she's a coach, a counselor, and she has the most amazing journey to share, which I think is important for all parents to hear, whether you are married or whether you're divorced. You know, understanding someone's journey is so important because then we can support each other as parents using love, compassion and understanding. So come along with me today and we will meet Paulina. See you soon. It's all good. Well, thank you for meeting me at this park. I needed this today. This quiet.
It's good to breathe.
And some birds around eating.
And water.
And water. And
nature.
This is exactly where I am right now. This is exactly what I need. Oh, so you and I met, a year and a half ago?
Yes.
And I saw you at a workshop I went to, and I looked at you and I said, I want her to be my friend. And that was it. You had no chance.
And then there we go.
I was always drawn to you, for one thing, was when you told me what you did I just felt like it was so needed in the world, you know, and what, you know, your whole thing about the journey of being a single parent, all of that. So can you explain that to me a little?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to. My marriage ended 5 years ago and I was married for 17 years and now my boys are 12 and 10, but back then they were obviously much younger. And I remember when my marriage ended, after being with someone for 17 years, you're at that point where you hit rock bottom. I didn't know how I was going to function being a single mum and what my new life was going to look like. And I distinctively remember saying to myself at that time that I didn't want to be the psycho ex-wife. I didn't want to be bitter. I didn't want to...
Because that's heavy to carry, isn't it?
So heavy to carry. And my little mantra, or my little, I'm not sure if the word's mantra or affirmation or wording, is be better and not bitter. And
I love that. Be better, not bitter.
Be better, not bitter. That's like my little hashtag. And I always wanted to be a role model for my kids. I always wanted them to look at me, and not so much now because they're younger, but perhaps when they're older, they might say, wow, Mum, you know, thank you for making this transition smooth for us. The tradition is a relationship ends, you have to hate each other, people need to pick sides. And it's like hate. And, you know, there are other ways to separate it. It doesn't have to be nasty and bitter and resentful. Yeah. And I think sometimes when we go through these hurts and these wounds and this separation, it brings up our core wounds, our inner hurts. And that's when I really decided to go on that personal growth journey and realize that I was actually hurting. I was blaming my ex for a lot of things when I realised a lot of it had to do with myself. And I knew that there was another way to separate, and I wanted there to be a different way, and I didn't want it to be the way that I guess society looks at it now. And
there's so many spiders under this tree.
Oh, are there?
Australia.
Good old Australia. I came across a concept called conscious uncoupling, and it was all about 5 steps to living happily even after, not ever after. And it was, I was really intrigued when it became quite popular when Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin separated. I don't know if you know who they are. Do you know? Yeah. So they were the kind of ones that put it out in the world, I guess. And I remember Googling frantically, like, conscious uncoupling, what is this? And came across it. Conscious uncoupling. And read this beautiful book, and it changed my whole outlook on looking at it. And it looks at separation and heartbreak in a way to be much more gracious and humble, and remembering that you actually loved each other once, and you were together, and you know, and in whatever's happened is you're now not together. And so I was so passionate about it that I became
that's gorgeous, because that's true. That's very true, isn't it?
Well, yeah. And
there was a story before this story.
yeah, there was a story that we were together 17 years. We had beautiful memories, beautiful, our children, and unfortunately what we do is we focus on all the nastiness and it brings out the best and the worst of us, doesn't it, when it comes to love and especially you notice that when a marriage ends or a relationship ends, whether you're married or not, that it can bring out so much stuff that you never thought you had, and it can bring up a lot of blame and a lot of resentment and pointing the fingers. But the conscious uncoupling process is all about taking a look within and doing some inner work and inner healing and looking at how like this.
But that's exhausting.
What's exhausting?
Doing all that when you're going through all this.
Oh, I know,
it's
yeah.
Like, I'm just going to go look within. It's like your life's chaos. You have to
of course,
build a whole new life, and
yes.
then you have to spend that energy. It's exhausting, isn't it?
It's exhausting, and it takes a commitment, it takes a commitment, but I always remembered what was my intention, and the whole process is all about setting an intention. What do you want this to look like afterwards? And the two things were, I didn't want to be the psycho ex-wife, and I wanted to be a role model for my children, because unfortunately it's the children that are the ones that get traumatized because parents use them and play off each other, and I never wanted to be that person, because the ones that suffer are the children. And when we go through these moments, and yes, I had moments, don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect in any way, shape or form, but I that I lashed out and all that, but I realized it was the children that were suffering and not so much.
And you've done that well, because I remember last week we were chatting about you and the kids. I was struck by how you and your ex, it just seemed so loving and caring, even you'd set the conditions that he cared about you as a mom as well as the kids. And I was really struck by that, and that's probably something that you created. It could have gone the other way. Hey?
Oh, it could have gone the other way, yeah. And that was, again, a conscious, intentional choice that I made, because what happens is, in any relationship, whether it's a friendship or whatever, we don't have control over the other person. All we have control over is ourselves, and how we react or respond to situations. And I always found that whenever I was hurting and suffering or angry, it had nothing to do with my ex. It was something to do with all the stuff that was going on with myself. But if you're willing to kind of put in that work and really try to look at this in a different way, that how can we make this as humble and as gracious as possible without adding, we add in all this extra hurt and suffering when we don't need to, because we want to prove a point, we want to be right, and our ego takes over, or we want to get the last word in when it's, it's kind of like, how is this really effective for me right now?
And how are the kids?
How are the kids now?
This, yeah. Or what was I'm sure they went through a journey too.
Oh, of course.
This whole thing's a journey, and it's not ended. But
yes. And we find that things obviously change as they get older. They're a bit older now, and the beginning was difficult, of course, for all of us. It was a big transition, and I'm not going to say it was easy in any way, shape or form. And there was obviously a process of grieving the marriage, like grieving my ex-husband and what we had, but also grieving the loss of the children. And I remember...
Because when they go to their dads.
When they go to their dads, yeah. And I was in the home at the time when my ex-husband moved out.
But you still grieve every time they go.
Well, yeah, there's always a grieving process, yeah.
Even after years, I'm sure it's
still
there.
It takes an adjustment, and it's I think it's having that compassion to yourself and kindness to grieve when they go, and to also, when I would walk past their room and they weren't there, and that's a continuous journey. It does, I guess, the intensity of it isn't so much as the time's gone on that it was in the beginning.
But I did this yoga class this week, and this yoga teacher who was amazing, he said, you know what, you've got to stop thinking about what was, and you've got to think that what is now just is.
Acceptance. And
he was talking about COVID and that, but I really think it relates a little bit here, because, if you always live in the past of what was, and you're so attached, but if you just accept that what is, and then you just accept that fully.
Yeah, I would say 100%.
Then you can just be, this is just how it is.
Yeah.
And build that into something beautiful, hopefully.
Yeah.
But that all takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of work, and it's kind of almost like asking yourself every day, like, what do I choose? What am I choosing now? Am I choosing to be bitter and make everyone's life hell because I'm hurting, or am am I accepting what is, and looking at all the lessons that I learned from the past, and what are the lessons and blessings I can take away from this, and if we can always come from that place of self-awareness and self-reflection about what is this here to teach me, and that's how I very much am in any situation of my life, from forgiveness to what your ex did, and dropping.
That's a big one.
That's
a big subject. Woo!
And that's a whole process in itself. It's not like, oh, I forgive you next. It's
because I'm sure it's like a wave.
Oh my gosh, it comes.
It just there's so much. Yeah.
So much. And when my partner repartnered, it was like, whoa, and then when I met her, and then met her kids, and it was like, whoa,
These waves of just never ending.
Never ending. And it's like I always.
You know what? As a me who's friends with you, and I have other friends who single parents as well. That's so good for me to hear, because it's really great for me to hear, because sometimes to imagine that wave coming to a single parent all the time is very powerful for me, because it puts it in perspective of how I can support them.
Yeah.
To not always assume that, you got over it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're done.
Yeah.
That's a really nice analogy. I really like that, because then I can support them and support parents to always know that they might be here or they might be there, and just be wherever they are with them.
Yeah.
No wonder you're such a strong woman, I swear.
Well, I don't know if I'm strong, resilient, perhaps, and
both, maybe both.
Maybe a bit of both. I think it's Nelson Mandela says this really powerful quote, and I might be wrong, but resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And when we're bitter and hatred and all this anger, it doesn't affect the other person. It just feeds away at you. And I remember early on in the marriage, if I can share this quick story, is when it was very, very raw and painful, and I was in this darkness of despair, and like, how am I going to live? How am I going to function? How am I going to get out of bed? Like dark, deep depression, and just not wanting really to function. I remember I was so angry towards my ex-husband, and I remembered thinking, hold on a minute, this isn't affecting him, this isn't impacting him. All this rage, all this stuff that I've got going on, he's going on with his life, living it, doing stuff in a new relationship, whatever it is. But here I am, the one that's hurting, and I was like, I'm done. Like I got sick of my own BS. I thought I want to start living, and I really am a true believer in be better and not bitter. Like grow from this, evolve from this. Be the victor, not the victim. So many people fall into that victim trap.
And I hear you, but getting there.
I know. It's a commitment.
Yeah. Getting and staying there.
Yeah.
Not regressing.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
And you can go back and forth. Like there was obviously times where I did kind of go into the victim, found myself. But when you have the tools and the strategies to be able to catch yourself, then you're not in it for long.
That's where your business comes in, and people like you who do that. I think that's why I just think it's so vocational, isn't it? Like you're using your journey to teach us. I love that. So I'm glad you're doing that in the world.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's nice to see the impact that it has on, it's not just the person, but their family, and then to see them be empowered and to I guess in some ways grow and evolve and blossom, and to become
amazing to watch.
Yeah. This is the joys of living in Australia with the magpies. And thinking, are we going to get swooped? Or
I know. I'm like, I hope I'm not in a swooping area.
I could see
it's
Joe
not
thinking,
swooping season yet, is
no,
it?
not yet. No. I wanted to just say one last thing about, if I had to give one advice to people who have, people who have children, I think this is probably the main thing, is I remember when I was going through my coaching, my conscious uncoupling, one of the coaches in that said, she was focusing on the children aspect, was if the children can't do anything about it, don't say anything. And that to me just really stuck in my head, because so many parents put their kids in the middle and make comments or say things, and that's a big weight for kids, again depending on their age that they're at, that if they can't do anything about it, don't tell them anything, and just not consuming your kids and venting and crying and screaming to someone else, not your children, because they can't do anything about it, and then they carry that, and it's
that's very, very good.
That's probably one of my big things, and I know, and I love with your book, Joe. I got so much takeaways from your book. I just could talk about it for so long, but the two main things were about. One about that, the circle of trust. Is that what you call it?
Yes.
Was it Yes. I wasn't sure if it was the inner circle.
Anything can happen in the circle of trust.
Yeah, and really just being with your children and letting them have any kind of emotions and and letting them talk. And that's a big thing that I've got from my boys too, is that they feel safe in a non-judgmental way to share any emotion, and for me to validate it and not dismiss them. And so yes, I understand that you're sad, and I understand.
Being able to say anything in that
Yep.
circle. You know, last night my daughter came and she was giggling, and she wanted to tell us a joke, and she's in Australian high school, so she's 13, and I don't know where she got this joke, but it was so rude, and I could tell it was going to be rude, and she was like, I think I got to put this in the circle of trust, otherwise I'm going to get into trouble for saying this joke.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
she did, and it was so rude.
Yeah.
But we couldn't do anything about it because she had put it in the circle of trust.
Yeah, there you go.
So we just
I
had
love
to
that
let her
concept.
release. She needed to get it out of her body. She needed to share it. She needed to vent it. She couldn't keep it to herself because
Yes.
it wasn't proper or right or whatever else
Yeah.
society rules are. But she vented it, we laughed, and we moved on. You know?
Oh, the second thing from your book was about what are you doing today to become the best version of yourself,
your
and like
future self,
your future self. And I always say that to my kids, and son's obsessed with soccer, and he's like, yes, I'm out there and doing my soccer, and you know, and that's helping his future self. So yeah, I love that. It was such a great read. Lots of like takeaways and aha moments, and lots of juicy nuggets. So thank you for that.
Just all from parents like you, really. That's what we do. We share. So
We share, exactly.
Oh wow. Well, I think we got to go get our kids from school.
Yes.
Enough dilly-dallying. Enough
enjoy
enjoying
this-
the winter sunshine.
I
in
enjoyed this
Australia.
conversation. Thank you for having me.
And I'm getting ready to leave soon, so I think this is one of our last chats.
I know.
Very weird.
It's nice just to kind of slow down though
It is. It's nice to sit in the magpie
and not get
and
swooped.
not get swooped. This is divine.
That was good. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you
for having me on.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
I hope that I'll put your information, anyone who wants to hear more about your whole journey and what you can help them with, if anyone's resonating.
Yeah, of course.
I know that you would love to speak
Love
to anyone.
Yes, definitely. For sure.